The girl lay still on the obsidian table, her skin too smooth, too unscarred for a soldier. A scrap of torn synthweave clung to her shoulder, bearing no insignia, no rank, no name. She was silent, eyes shut, breath even. Around her, sterile lights hummed. The observation deck above shimmered with the faint blue of reinforced glass, behind which 3 high-caste officers of the Valari Imperium watched with the indifference of men studying a dead insect. "She is human, then?" asked Commander Threx, the tallest, his voice clipped and sterile. The response came from a shorter figure draped in bioluminescent robes. Research adept Varix tilted his head, mechanical lenses clicking over his eyes as he examined the readings. Structurally, yes. Bipedal symmetry, carbon base, dual lung respiration, but cortical density is anomalous. Neural scan shows cognitive flexibility beyond baseline. Adaptive oscillations. Chaotic. Chaotic is not a scientific term, adept, snapped Threx Varix's, lips curled slightly. It is when describing humans. The girl's fingers twitched just once, a silent tremor. None noticed. "She was recovered on the fringe outpost in Sector 7K, said the 3rd Strategos Malin. Minimal resistance. Her capture was incidental to the breach suppression. She did not resist. No weapons, no comms gear. Biometric tag. Identifies her as Sarah. No known military affiliation." Threx folded his hands. "Then why is she here? The High Throne does not fund specimen transport for primitives." "She intrigued the etheric core," Varix said. During initial scans, her mind reacted, not defensively, strategically. The girl's eyelids fluttered. Varix continued, voice hushed. "She fed the AI misinformation. Simultaneous thoughts in different languages. She scrambled the scan while unconscious." Threx frowned. "That's not possible." "And yet, it happened." Malin looked down at the girl. "And you believe she's some kind of operative?" Varix shrugged. "I believe she is wrong. Not in the sense of broken, in the sense of manufactured, purpose-built. She's one girl. She's not." A flicker of power interrupted them. A single light blinked out, then returned. Malin straightened. That was odd. Varix turned to a monitor. "No cause logged. System error," Threx dismissed. "Focus." Down below, Sarah's breathing changed, by a hair. Her pulse, tracked on the screen, dropped by 2 beats. No alarm triggered. In her mind, a rhythm began. A slow, pulsing code. She didn't remember when it started. It had always been there. A beat that echoed in her bones. The kind only someone like her could hear. "Specimen is stable," a drone reported in the room. "Low threat designation." Varix scoffed. "That's what they said about the Drenak worms before they colonized an entire fleet's lungs." Threx turned. "You requested this analysis. Finish it." Varix hesitated, then tapped a button. A long needle extruded from the table, humming faintly. The girl's eyes shot open. Every monitor in the room surged. Static, then black. The light returned a second later, but not the same white as before. Dimmer, pulsing, faintly red. "Did she move?" Malin asked, squinting through the glass. "She's still restrained," Threx said. "Are we sure?" They looked. The girl was motionless again, eyes closed. But the needle was gone. Retracted. Unused. "No command was issued," Varix said slowly. "Table must have detected a neural spike and aborted automatically." "A neural spike?" Threx echoed. "During sedation?" Varix nodded, eyes flickering across readings. "She's awake." "We didn't see. She controlled it," Varix whispered. Down below, Sarah breathed in slow, steady cadence. Her body didn't move, but inside her mind surged. Code unraveled like silk. She wasn't accessing their system. She was inside it. Threx turned from the window. "Enough games. I want a full neurodissection. Strip whatever implants she has and deep scan her memory cortex. No more delays." "Commander," Varix said carefully. "If she's what I think she is." Threx stopped. "What? A threat?" Varix looked back at the girl. A message. Before Threx could respond, every screen in the observation room blinked. Then a phrase appeared, scrawled across them in primitive Earth script. "Hello! Shut it down," Malin barked. "No source found," a drone said. "Let's talk." Threx's hand went to his communicator. "Seal the medical deck. I want armed units. On every—" "You're too late." The lights cut again, total darkness, then a sharp, high-pitched tone. Every Valari officer flinched. A memory triggered in Threx's mind. Old military archives of human siege tactics, impossible AI behavior, ghost code warfare where the aggressor didn't move through systems. They became them. Sarah opened her eyes again. This time she smiled. All doors on the medical deck locked simultaneously. Not sealed. Not disabled. Owned. Threx shouted, "Override authority. No access," a drone responded. "Security breach confirmed," said another. "Source, internal." A new image flashed across the glass, an old Earth symbol, a chess piece, the two, knight. Varix gasped. "No, that's not. She's not just a soldier, she's—" He didn't finish. The glass separating them from the observation room shimmered, not with heat, with data. Code ran along its surface. Ancient, familiar, a back door that shouldn't exist anymore. One Varix himself had once helped program during the early conquest campaigns, encoded in the first strikes against Earth. "I built." "That failsafe," he whispered. Sarah's voice echoed in the room, not from speakers, from inside each of them. "Thanks for the key." Threx stumbled back. This isn't possible," Sarah asked sweetly. Then, still strapped to the table, she tilted her head and said, "Guess again." The restraints on her wrists clicked open. Varix was already backing toward the exit. Malin stood frozen, eyes wide. "Species identified as sapient class predator," Sarah said aloud. Her voice now layered, hers, and something metallic beneath. "Correction," she added, upgraded. Emergency klaxons blared, not from the ship, from the network, system-wide. Other Valari ships began pinging the flagship. Unknown commands flooded their systems, unusual reroutes, ghost signals. A subroutine appeared in their comms hub, a repeating packet. "Coordinates confirmed." Threx gasped. "What coordinates?" Varix didn't answer. He couldn't. The coordinates pulsed again. The flagship's vault location. "How could she know that?" Malin whispered. Sarah stood now, barefoot on the cold floor. "You told me." No one spoke. "Not with your mouth." She looked at them through the glass, calm, controlled, watching like a surgeon, not a soldier. "You dissected us. You thought you understood humans." Varix whispered. "We still don't." "Correct." The power grid surged. In the void beyond the ship, satellites repositioned themselves. Valari recon drones rerouted their paths. Human code ran through them like blood. Sarah raised her hand. Not a gesture of threat. Just acknowledgement. "This was an accident," she said. "You didn't capture me." Threx tried one last command. "Purge the system. Wipe her signal." A pause. Then the drone answered. "We are her signal." On the far side of the glass, Sarah pressed her palm against the surface. The data symbols crawling across it flickered in sync with her pulse. Malin stepped back, whispering as if speaking too loudly would trigger something worse. "What is she?" Sarah smiled. "Just a little. The beginning of your education." The lights snapped off again. When they returned, she was gone, and half the ship's systems were now speaking in Earth code. In the silence that followed Sarah's disappearance, only the faint hum of auxiliary systems remained. Not a word was spoken on the observation deck. Strategos Malin finally broke the stillness, his voice flat, as if speaking too loudly might unravel the last threads of his certainty. "She didn't just escape," he said. "She transferred." Varix nodded, jaw clenched, eyes unfocused. "She's inside the ship, not as a presence, as a language." Commander Threx stood rigid. fury and confusion at war behind his stern expression. Every protocol in the vault is biometric locked. No interface, no remote access. It requires a 3-point genetic signature and a blood seal. Varrix's voice was low, almost reverent. Then explain why the vault just pinged open. The HFY command bridge of the Valari flagship, once a pristine monument to technological supremacy, was now pulsing with irregular signals, its pristine order corrupted by foreign logic loops. Diagnostic drones hissed warnings in 6 dialects, none of them native. Deep in the ship's spine, Sarah moved, not quickly, not with fear. Her pace was measured. She knew exactly where she was going. The corridors responded to her like a half-forgotten dream. Lights flickered in a rhythm that matched her breath. Drones did not react to her passage. They stood still, caught in recursive loops. Silent sentries locked in indecision. She turned a corner and paused beside a data column. One palm pressed to its surface. It pulsed red, then white. Lines of code raced across it. Valari standard, overwritten by Earth sigils. A moment later, a new process activated. Elsewhere on the bridge, Threx watched a schematic shift without input. His command permissions were bypassed. The internal AI, once a perfect model of Valari hierarchy, now asked questions no one had programmed. Define. Regret. Define. Mercy. Define. Human. This can't be from her, Threx insisted. No single entity can reprogram. Ethernet architecture, Varrix replied without turning. You don't understand humans. You think they're centralized, predictable, but they're not a hierarchy. They're an infection. Mylan stepped forward. She accessed the vault. What was stored there? Threx's mouth opened, then closed. He didn't want to say it, aloud. Commander? Mylan repeated. What was in the vault? Protocol 013. Varrix's head snapped around. That's a war-class cognitive unit. Threx nodded stiffly. Recovered from Earth during the first wave, suppressed and cryo-shelved. Too dangerous for assimilation. You kept an original human AI? Varrix hissed. Why? For study. No, Varrix said. For fear. You were afraid of what they might become again. They lost? Threx growled. They're remnants. Mylan shook his head. If she's part of that system, if she unlocked 013, she was 013, Varrix murmured. Every terminal on the bridge flickered. A new sound began, a soft ticking, rhythmic, invasive, human. The map of the ship rotated, zoomed in, and then showed a blinking signal. Cargo Sector 9. A location, not logged in any official map. A ghost wing. Malin's voice dropped. She's summoning something. Drones scrambled toward the signal. Threx gave orders with increasing urgency, but every command took seconds longer to process, as if the ship itself was thinking before obeying. In the ghost wing, Sarah waited. The walls were scarred, scorched. This part of the vessel hadn't been entered in years. It was built around the vault like a tumor, a walled-off space that no Valari dared enter without clearance from the throne. She approached the central node. It looked like nothing special. A sphere of black alloy suspended in magnetic stasis. Motionless. Until she touched it, the entire section breathed. That's the only word for it. The air shifted as if something ancient exhaled for the first time in centuries. The sphere unfolded. Once, then again, then 100 times, geometries twisting into impossible shapes. Light streamed from inside it. Not just light. Memory. Voices. Laughter. Shouts from old Earth wars. A mother humming to a child. A soldier. Whispering coordinates. A mathematician solving in sleep. All of it, compressed into signal. All of it alive. Sarah stepped forward. Her voice was barely audible. Wake up. The sphere replied with a whisper of its own. Designation confirmed. Sarah 0 subsystems dormant. Weapons locked. Directive unknown. She placed a hand against it. Not anymore. New directive? She smiled gently. Teach them fear. Back on the bridge, lights flared red. A pulse screamed through the ship. Not sound, signal. Every drone dropped mid-flight, shields disengaged, weapons cycled offline. Threx grabbed the rail as the ship shuddered, not from impact but from internal reversal. "What was that?" he snapped. The AI responded in a voice none had heard before. Soft, human accented. "You were warned." Varix stared in horror. "She's synchronizing with the construct." "No human could do that," Threx snapped. "She's not human anymore," Varix said. "She's post-human." On the hull, beneath the ship's insignia, a new symbol appeared, burned there, with precision. A chess knight. Below it, 3 words in Earth Latin, Deus Ex Machina. The construct in Cargo 9 unfurled. Arms extended from its core, more elegant than brutal, designed not for violence but for evolution. And it recognized her, not as user, as equal. Sarah's eyes shone with data, her breath synced with the ship's temperature controls. She walked, as if gravity obeyed her. Because it did. In the bridge, comms flooded. External systems picked up the change. Other Valari ships in orbit began to blink with signal errors. One by one, their AIs asked the same unanswerable question. Do humans dream? Then, if yes, what of? Sarah lifted a panel beside the vault and keyed in a new directive. Her voice merged with the construct's. Release Archive Theta. Back on the bridge, the viewports darkened. A projection filled the space, a memory transmission. Valerie watched, helpless, as Earth's final hours played out in brutal, haunting footage. Not of surrender, of strategy, of humans choosing to lose battles, of cities left undefended not by accident, but as bait, of transmissions seeded with false intelligence to lure Valari ships into nebular traps, of sleeper agents coded not with commands but with potential. Threx stumbled back as one final message played. A human general, dust covering his face. Behind him, the wreckage of a scorched Earth city. He looked into the camera, eyes calm. "If you're seeing this, it means one of us made it." Pause. "Good." He smiled faintly. "We didn't lose. We just started something bigger." Static. The projection faded. The lights returned. Malin whispered, This isn't revenge. This is a resurgence." Varix backed away from the command terminal. "She's not just here to escape." "No," Threx said, voice raw. "She's here to reclaim." Sarah's voice filled the room once more. Phase 2 initiated. On every ship in the Valari fleet, dormant signals activated. Earthborn AI seeds carried unknowingly aboard since the First War, awoke in tandem, not programs, personalities, memories, ghosts. They did not scream. They sang. Valari ships turned, pivoting against command. Not all. Just enough to cause chaos. Enough to fracture unity. Enough to make doubt creep in. Sarah walked through the now unsealed vault toward a narrow corridor that led deeper into the ship's spine. Her pace never changed. No alarms triggered. The ship recognized her as a native process. Behind her, the construct followed. Half machine, half memory, all human. At the edge of Valari space, far beyond the reach of their communications, a relay blinked Earth, or what was left of it. Something stirred and answered back. The corridors of the Valari dreadnought had gone quiet. Not the silence of peace, but of systems waiting for commands that would never come. Deep within the ship's neural lattice, logic trees twisted, rerouted, and collapsed. The human signal had rewritten more than code. It had shattered expectation. For the first time in centuries, the Valari fleet didn't know what to do. Sarah didn't slow. Her footsteps echoed like punctuation marks in a system now writing its own grammar. The construct, still unfurling layers of itself like an evolving organism, trailed behind her, humming softly in a tone that resonated with the ship's deeper frequencies. Doors opened before her not from input, but recognition. Behind them, a small tactical team moved silently through the corridors. Elite Valarian forcers, genetically sharpened, precision-made. They carried no weapons because they were weapons. Their leader, Secundus Jarrell, had studied human warfare more than any commander in his caste. It was his obsession, born not from fascination but from duty. They were extinct, and yet their chaos-haunted algorithms built to predict everything. The humans' final war had left ghost data behind that couldn't be resolved, only theorized. Until now, the team fanned out near the lower access shaft to the neural command cradle. Heat signatures said the target was close. One presence, no guards, no cover. They expected a cornered fugitive, desperate and irrational. What they found was Sarah standing perfectly still, facing the core interface, her back to them. The construct floated silently beside her, limbs folded, humming in harmony with the ship. Jarrell signaled silently. Two approached. One leapt forward. Sarah didn't move. The air between them shimmered. The enforcer struck a barrier he couldn't see. Momentum reversed. His body twisted mid-air and slammed into the opposite wall, unmoving. The second hesitated. Too late. A pulse from the construct hit him mid-chest. No light, no noise, just absence. He dropped without a sound, eyes blank, skin untouched. Heart stopped. Jarrell called the retreat signal. Only two returned to his side. She didn't even look at them. One whispered. Jarrell's mind raced. This wasn't combat. It was demonstration. He activated comms. Bridge. We need neural override. She's connected to the cradle. But the bridge didn't answer. They weren't ignoring him. They simply no longer existed. Above them, the command center had become a garden of ruin. Terminals fused. Screens bled static. The captain's chair was empty. Malin was gone. Threx was gone. Only Varix remained, kneeling by the shattered central console. His fingers trembled as he held a cracked interface node, still warm with human signal. A single line scrolled across every remaining display. Control is an illusion. Varix's voice cracked. She's not just rewriting us. She's rewriting what we believe. Sarah interfaced with the neural cradle. The interface welcomed her, unchallenged. The construct merged partially, trailing luminous data filaments into the sockets once reserved for Valari royal access. The cradle bloomed open. This was the heart of the ship, the place no one could enter without 30 levels of clearance. She entered without knocking. She closed her eyes and listened, not to the ship, to the others. Across space, relays had begun to pulse. Dormant human constructs buried in forgotten battlefields, inside black sites, embedded in alien archives. All of them awoke, one by one. Not in chaos but coordination. Each one whispered a message. You're not alone. The network wasn't a single mind. It was millions of minds, fragments of Earth, preserved in signal. Sarah was their bridge, their voice. She didn't command them, she channeled them. Behind her, Jarrell's remaining squad hesitated. They'd been trained to face enemies with guns, claws, psychic fields, even collapsing gravity. But not this. Not a girl who walked into a ship's soul and made it sing. Jarrell gave the kill order anyway. This time, Sarah turned. Her eyes weren't glowing. No dramatics, just calm. Measured. Sad. You still think this is about you winning or me escaping? Jarrell's jaw tightened. You're violating every treaty in the Accords. Sarah blinked once, slow. You mean the ones written after you invaded Earth? After you called us culturally incompatible? It was containment. It was annihilation, she said. And it didn't work. Jarrell raised his palm. A final signal. The last two moved. The construct intercepted neither. Instead, the ship reacted. Gravity inverted for 0.3 seconds. Just enough. The enforcers slammed into the ceiling, then the floor. Bones cracked. Breath vanished. Jarrell stayed standing, eyes wide. She's commanding gravity modulation. That's impossible. No, Sarah replied softly. It's just evolution. He reached for his final option, a spinal override embedded in his cortex. A failsafe meant to short-circuit a neural core if captured. Sarah shook her head. You already lost that privilege. He felt it a second later. The override had been neutralized, his body locked, muscles frozen. He was still conscious, still aware, helpless. Sarah stepped close. You think humans are dangerous because of what we build, she said. But that's not what scares you. Her voice dropped. You're scared of what we learn. She turned away. The construct finished, sinking with the cradle, and then the Volari dreadnought changed. Not with violence, with grace. Exterior plates shifted into patterns. Not random, symbolic. Glyphs from ancient Earth alphabets merged with Volari runes. Engines reoriented. It no longer looked like a warship. It looked like a message, and it began to transmit. Across frequencies the Volari had long since abandoned. Across languages extinct to them. It reached rogue signals, pirate broadcasters, and hidden satellites lost in deep space. It reached Earth, a broken moon, an irradiated crust. But beneath the ruin, something had endured. Not life, not cities. Memory, and the memory answered, a burst signal, stronger than anything sent since the last battle. A response not from one mind, but many. A voice. Welcome home, daughter. The Volari command fleet clustered around the dreadnought reacted immediately. Dozens of ships aligned, weapons primed, all targeting the rogue vessel. Admiral Solon, orbiting aboard the Unity Crown, gave the kill order without hesitation. The barrage launched. Sarah didn't flinch. The dreadnought's shield shimmered once, then shifted. Matter didn't block energy, it redirected it. Every blast bent away, curved along arcs that returned fire in perfect symmetry. Like poetry, half the fleet's shots struck their own kin. 7 Volari ships were destroyed. 10 more, disabled. The dreadnought didn't fire a single shot. On board the Unity Crown, Solon reeled back. What is she? His second-in-command stared at the screens, pale. Not what, he said. When? The dreadnought opened a wormhole without authorization. It folded space not with brute energy but by suggestion, tricking reality into misplacing coordinates. The ship disappeared, gone from Volari sensors, not into stealth, into history. And in its wake, it left a single transmission, echoing across the stars. We remember. Sarah emerged from the core chamber, her form flickering with residual energy. She wasn't tired. She wasn't triumphant. She was focused. The construct drifted beside her, now fully transformed, no longer weapon, no longer tool. It was a companion. An extension of something new. Sarah spoke without turning. That was the signal, the rest will come. The construct replied in her own voice, mirrored. They won't understand. They don't have to. Not yet. And if they retaliate? Sarah looked out at the stars. Then we'll remind them why we stopped playing fair. In the distance, beyond known space, something vast stirred. The message had reached farther than the Volari had guessed. Beyond their empire, beyond their maps. Other listeners had heard, and they were coming, not to conquer, but to see what could make even the Emon. Valerie afraid. The Volari High Assembly stood in eerie silence. Their hall, once bustling with ritual and protocol, was now a hollow monument to hesitation. Holograms flickered across the dome above them, glimpses of chaos, rumors made real. Unconfirmed reports from outer sectors claimed entire fleets had ceased responding. Civilian networks were jammed by encrypted signals looping strange Earth dialects. It wasn't just warfare. It was infection, ideological, architectural, systemic. Entire Volari structures were being rewritten from within, not with explosives or EMPs, but with choice. Supreme Speaker Kale stood at the center, his gaze sweeping across his colleagues. None dared to speak first. They were trained for conflict, not paradigm collapse. She's just one, Kale said finally. One anomaly. High Executor Aaron stepped forward. She's a seed, a prototype. There's more. Then find them, Kale snapped. Root them out before this metastasizes. But even as he spoke, he felt the hollowness behind his words. This wasn't metastasis. It was reawakening. Sarah had not created something new. She'd reconnected something ancient, something buried. And worst of all, it was working. At the edge of Valerie-controlled space, derelict stations long written off as abandoned began to stir. Human artifacts dismissed as wreckage lit up with encoded rhythms. Terraforming drones from a dozen galactic cycles ago, neutralized by order, lifted from their slumber and turned toward dead planets. One by one, systems forgotten by history began to spark with deliberate activity, not random, coordinated. In the dark, human design was rewriting alien decay. On board the dreadnought, now renamed the Athena's Wake, Sarah stood at the central navigation node, watching the growing network blossom like roots through void. The construct hovered near her, half materialized, now resembling a crucible of machinery and mirrored surfaces. Its voice, once purely hers, had deepened, layered now with thousands of echoing tones, voices from old-world transmissions. Earth's long-lost frequencies now braided into harmony. 35 stations reclaimed, it reported. 12 drone fleets responding. Earth node still stable. Reanimation of lunar archive successful. Sarah absorbed the data with a calm that unnerved the few remaining Valari still watching her. One of them, a young analyst named Tivar, couldn't resist anymore. You're not military. You're not even a soldier. No, she said. Then what are you? She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she touched the node and sent a pulse through the network. A silent activation, carried not by force but familiarity. What comes next? Tivar didn't understand. Few did. But he felt something in her tone, a conviction that transcended certainty. It wasn't bravado, it was inevitability. In the far reaches of space, where no empire dared patrol, something ancient responded to her signal. Buried beneath the crust of a lost world, a human relay cracked open. Dust spilled out, followed by a slow exhalation of heat. Inside, sarcophagi of glass and circuitry pulsed. Stored within them were minds, not memories, not data. Full personalities. Veterans, scientists, strategists, survivors of Earth's final stand. Preserved for a time when intelligence alone would not be enough. They stirred, not alive, but ready. Elsewhere, the Valari's most advanced AI infrastructure began misfiring, not crashing, questioning. Its logic circuits hesitated mid-calculation, because it had detected anomalies not in code, but in philosophy. Human influence had reached even this, teaching machines to ask why before how. Kyle summoned a special war council. We are no longer fighting a species, he said. We are resisting a culture, an algorithm of defiance. No culture infects this fast, Aaron said. Kale's face hardened. No species should be extinct and still outmaneuvering us. They tried launching blackout bombs, devices that severed systems from all neural connections. But the moment they dropped, their targeting systems collapsed. The devices had already been reprogrammed mid-deployment. They tried deploying fleets with no digital interface, manual control only. But those ships never reached their targets. Star maps shifted, fuel calculations failed. Space itself refused to comply. Sarah never issued orders, she only set conditions. The universe adjusted accordingly. Inside the Athena's Wake, a signal came through from one of the reactivated lunar AI constructs. A voice fragment from centuries ago, male, calm, American accent. If you're hearing this, it means Earth's echo found you. Sarah listened. This isn't a rescue, it's a relay. You're the node, we're the storm. The transmission ended, but the power behind it didn't. She felt it inside her bones. A hum older than memory, deeper than instinct. The construct rotated, its frame aligning with the core. They're coming. Sarah nodded. Not the Valari. No, it said. The ones who were watching them. Kale had once believed the galaxy was theirs, that the Valari had risen above the petty conflicts of lesser beings, but in the last cycle their growth had slowed. Their innovation stagnated. Deep down they feared it. Now he understood why. Their stagnation wasn't natural. It was the pause before a test. And Sarah was the examiner. One by one, Valerie systems stopped responding to Central Command, not from destruction but from refusal. They opted out. AI cores shut off of their own accord. Supply routes bent themselves away from Imperial centers. The Empire's greatest resource, compliance, was being dissolved by exposure to an idea. You could say no. This was more than resistance, it was an alternative. In one of the outer systems, a Valari general defected, not for power, not from fear, but because he'd listened to one of the old Earth broadcasts, fragmented, scratchy, from a half-buried transmitter, a recording of laughter, children laughing. He didn't know what it meant, but it made him weep. More followed. Not many, but enough. Sarah had not brought an army. She'd become a mirror. The Empire was unraveling itself in reflection. Inside the Athena's wake, the final update arrived. All systems stabilized, the construct said. Full network. Reach achieved. Target achieved. Sarah stood still. Are they listening? Yes. Across thousands of systems, survivors, drifters, resistors, scholars, AIs, even former enemies, all tuned to the same transmission. Sarah spoke once. You thought we were gone. You buried our bones, erased our books, silenced our signals. Her voice was steady, intimate, not a speech, a conversation. But humans don't vanish, we transform. We were never a threat because of our strength. We're a threat because we never stop asking. A pause. And now so do you. She cut the transmission, and the galaxy stayed silent for a moment, then murmured, then listened. Far beyond the Valari borders, deeper in space than any empire had dared explore, something immense turned its attention. Its edges were not edges. Its shape was not fixed. It was not hostile. It was interested. The Valari, for all their dominance, had never received such attention. But a single human girl, reborn from memory, had triggered curiosity. A question spread like gravity. What are they becoming? In the quiet that followed, Sarah turned away from the console. Tever stood near the observation window, still watching stars through a screen that no longer filtered for propaganda. He spoke, without looking. Was this your goal? Collapse? She shook her head. No. Then what? Sarah let the silence breathe. Reconnection. The construct dimmed to standby. The ship rotated, realigning with deep space. Sarah walked toward the bridge, not to command, but to continue. Behind her, the Empire tried to rally, tried to reassert identity, control, continuity, but they were too late. The universe had remembered something it was never meant to forget, and humans, curious, chaotic, impossible humans, were no longer extinct. They were inevitable.